can electricity help and save our coastlines? We'll tell you on this episode.
We get some rum and beer expensive, put in a reindeer, so you know we're gonna party.
Welcome back, Marine Conservation Happy Hour crew. It is so wonderful having you back on the show. Dr. Craken, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you
I've
just
got the
fine.
fan going in the background.
No.
So
is it hot over in Washington, D.C.?
It's very humid.
It's dreadful, huh? Okay. That's no good. Well, Dr. Craken, with climate change and all this heat rising and all this erosion that's happening, there's so many issues about our safety and preservation of our coastline, in addition to all the issues with housing insurance. I mean, this is a huge problem right now. A lot of people are being dropped.
You're on the front line of that, aren't you? Yeah, the risk from climate change in Florida and the housing insurance and hurricanes and
that's
erosion.
True, but we're talking about more. I'm more worried about California. I mean, those houses just literally just fall off of their cliffs, right? And so this is quite interesting because there's been some studies and some research being done in Northwestern University about how you can use electrical shock to solidify the sand and minerals to make it more solid, like a mollusk, like shells. And that's always been what we naturally had to protect us from storms and to keep us safe and for us to not fall off a cliff.
Have you ever seen those lightning sculptures you can get where they stick lightning conductors in sand and then the lightning hits and it fuses all the sand together in a sort of a glass? Have you seen those? So it's like taking that.
So I've never seen it, but I watched when I was a kid, Sweet Home Alabama, and they were talking about like the electricity, or showing that the electricity was creating glass. Yeah. So I kind of have that concept, but of course it was a very romantic concept.
Is that the Reese Witherspoon one?
Yes. I love her. She's adorable.
Yeah, so that's a real thing. So yeah, that makes perfect sense. You just sort of do that, but maybe not so hot you turn it into glass, but
yeah.
enough that you can fuse it together. Yeah. Sense.
Well, let me tell you some facts and figures because I love that. So apparently coastal erosions cause around 500 million of damage each year. So property damage. I mean, that's a lot. 500 million. That's something that we're asking these insurance companies to cover. This is why they're like, oops, no, I want to drop you. Never mind.
Yeah, just last week I saw a video of 2 houses in the Outer Banks just fall into the ocean.
Oh, awful. It's so awful. So hopefully this is something that people can adapt everywhere. I mean, we just need to have states, governments to adapt to this and make this a thing nationwide. Here, I want to also tell you, the erosion also leads to an annual loss of 80,000 acres of wetlands. That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah, that's a big problem in a lot of areas. So the coastal wetlands, there's erosion, and then there's also sedimentation, which is sort of clogging them up as well. So you've got these sort of 2 competing things. And yeah, if you look around the Gulf Coast, there's a lot of wetland loss going on there. It's just dreadful.
Oh, yeah. And here's the scary part. By the end of this century, there was a study in 2020 that says that as much as 26% of the planet's beaches will disappear. So this is a way that we can preserve any kind of erosions and us losing the beaches. Basically, they zap these minerals, the soil and the sand, with a mild current of 2 to 3 volts. And then it creates this hardening, just like shells. And isn't, you were saying something about mollusks?
Oh, yes. Yeah. There's a scientist who was experimenting with helping coral to settle So they built sort of a metal framework and then attached it to a power supply. In fact, I think they just used solar power on the beach and then plugged it through to the system. And this very small charge, I mean, it's not going to be so high that a fish bumps into it and goes,
Oh yeah, yeah,
it's not
yeah,
like
yeah,
it's not like a bug zapper. It's just like a very small current. But that little bit of energy just helps the ions in the seawater solution to go from being floaty around ions into solid calcium carbonate.
Yes. Oh my God. Okay, so I'm gonna dive in a little bit more into that. Because I love that. That's so sciencey. Anyways, there's my nerdiness coming out. Okay, so yes, you're absolutely right. So in seawater, it contains a great number of minerals, and these high numbers of ions, which you were mentioning, once with the charge, it generates these two minerals, which you were mentioning, the magnesium hydroxide and calcium carbonate. And that's how it creates it. So it's like, wee, look at all these ions. Oh, I'm going to zap them. And then they are created into these two awesome common minerals. So, you know me, I love like just let's say it one more time in a different way, just in case. All right, so Dr. Kraken, 40% of the world's population lives on the coastline. And with the sea levels rising and all this climate change, this awesome electrical zapping and creating this like cement like bond is going to be the fix. It's got to be the fix. We need to tell everyone as much as possible. Share this episode with as many people as possible. They need to know this.
I mean, there are things that people have done historically to try and stop the erosion of beaches. So, for example, in the UK, there's a lot of beaches where they have these wooden fences called groins, and the sand all gets pushed against one side of the fence and it doesn't leave the beach. But they found that if they keep putting these up, then the next beach down the coast loses all its sand.
Oh, interesting.
So if you start putting them in, you have to start putting them in everywhere.
Oh, see, okay, see, and this is a better solution. This is a better solution.
Yeah, so otherwise beaches sort of further down the coast, their beach disappears. So they've been struggling with this for quite a while. And of course, putting wooden structures in, you have to replace them.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they just erode the wooden structures.
So it does make sense. You sort of go in, and it's kind of like, I guess it's kind of like putting natural pilings in instead of putting a big wooden stick in. You just have like I suppose a column of concrete. You put your metal zap.
Yeah, but it's the concrete that's it's using the material that's already there.
Yeah, natural.
And I love that. And it also doesn't harm the ecosystem around it. So that's wonderful. I love it.
I mean, 2 volts isn't going to, well, maybe some very small wormy things in the sand, but it's not going to affect fish or crabs or
even the
like
mollusks or anything, any shellfish around or anything like that. That's awesome. I'm so happy. I love when we can deliver some good news. Let's spread the word. Please, please, please share this, because I think anyone that lives around the coastline should be talking about this and spreading the word. So then eventually it gets to the right person in legislation and their local government to get this done, because this is going to be inexpensive.
Yeah, coming up with solutions rather than doing what certain states do. Let's just not talk about climate change and pretend it'll go away.
Well, I don't think anyone's doing that now, because everyone's having to cash out on their housing and it's becoming an issue. All right. Thank you, Dr. Kraken, for joining me and talking to me about this wonderful news. And for everyone that's listening, thank you so much for being part of the Marine Conservation Happy Hour crew. Hey, Marine Conservation Happy Hour crew, don't forget to hit subscribe and follow us for future episodes. And also refer us. We'd love it. We would also like to hear from you, so please contact us on social media, or you can email us about a topic that you're interested in hearing about. If you're interested in sponsoring this podcast, or you would like us to come visit your science facility and do a live episode, email us at info@absolutelysmashingllc.com. This podcast was edited and produced by Absolutely Smashing. The music is produced by Jolly Shore Leave. Thank you again for listening, and we couldn't do this without you. Thank you so much for being part of the Marine Conservation Happy Hour crew.